At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast, whether you are on Patreon or Facebook or Circle. Thank you, all of you, for everything. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you, but especially all of you who are watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. I am here this week out at Cobb County 911 in Georgia. I've got a couple classes that I'm teaching, but today, Wednesday, the 6th of November, 2024, I'm recording multiple episodes back to back. And it has been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot of things. It has been excellent. I'm excited for my guest today, and her name is Kate. She just walked in a little bit ago, and she's the business manager here at Cobb County 911, again, out of Georgia. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
You know, I'm doing good. I was telling some of the folks that came in earlier today that when I got done with class, so I'm 43 years old. I'm not that old. However, standing for 8 hours straight and just talking nonstop, man, when I got back to my Airbnb, I was dying.
I bet. It takes a lot of energy out of you. I understand completely.
You know, my kids sometimes, though, they'll say, like, is it really that hard? I'm like, I mean, it's not that hard. I said, but we're standing all freaking day, man. And, you know, later on, like, your body, you start to feel it, like it gets tight. And also, I got to find some honey somewhere because my throat is destroyed because I've been talking all day.
Yep. Being social and teaching people and having those conversations. Yeah, I can understand what that is.
Yes, it gets crazy
exhausting
sometimes, but also rewarding. It was a lot of fun yesterday. I'm looking forward to tomorrow, and it has been excellent today as well. So thank you. You know, we were talking earlier before we started recording. We had conversations going back and forth on emails and such, and that procurement, like all of that stuff is.
I know. It's a bit of it's a bit crazy, kind of the hoops you do have to jump through and get everything set up. But I'm glad we were finally able to get you set up.
Yes, we got it set up and
got you what you needed, and we're glad you're here. I know everybody's been so excited about the class. We've really been looking forward to it.
It's been an honor to be here and just teach and just talk with everyone and just learn how everything goes on here at the county. So we were talking a little bit earlier, and you have been in public safety for a little over like 3 years now, right?
Correct, yep.
How did you get involved in public safety to begin with?
Yeah, so kind of a little personal, but you know, I've lived all over the place in the United States. I was born in Pasadena, California, moved around quite a bit. My dad worked for corporate America. And in my life, I've kind of been followed by some tragedies. I actually lived right down the street from Columbine High School when Columbine occurred.
Oh, wow.
And then I was in New York. My dad worked in the city during 9/11, and then lived in Richmond, Virginia during the Virginia Tech shooting. So I know it's a little bit crazy, but all
Yeah.
those things kind of, they followed me, and it kind of was a calling for me that I needed to do something that helped people. And for the longest time, I thought I was going to be a prosecutor. I went to school at the University of Tennessee, political science degree. All the way up into my junior year, I said, I want to be a lawyer. That's what I want to do. And I took the LSAT, and I failed miserably. I did horrible. And I said to myself, what am I going to do with my life? And it was that weekend, I remember going through, talking with my parents, talking with my boyfriend at the time, and said, you know what, rather than prosecute, I want to be there to support the people that support us. I can't do this hard job that our dispatchers do here and that the police do, but I want to support them. And so I ended up getting my master's in public policy and administration, and said, I want to support the people that support us on our worst days. And how can I do that? Finance, budgeting, and contract management. And so that's kind of how I fell into this. And I'm really grateful to be here and to get to support these people.
Wow. You are just fully inspired by a lot of things that were around you. And like you said, through tragic moments,
Yeah.
like those, I remember where I was in high school that last year when all this was going on, and seeing that roll out on TV.
Yeah.
And you being even closer than I was to that, like, you know,
was
in
horrible.
that area. And but I love the fact that there's a lot of us, right, who kind of want to be part of something that's bigger than ourselves. And whatever it is around us, our our life experience, and like with you, like you said, those three incidents specifically, like it really pushed you to want to do more.
It did. And, I always knew that like I said, I can't do what they do. I respect these people that I get to work with every day so much, because they're the ones in the trenches, really. But at the same time, they need the support administratively to do their job the best they can. And so, going to school and kind of seeing what my strengths were, and knowing that I can do these financial things, I can negotiate some contracts to save us money so that maybe we can do some pay raises. I mean, things like that are what I know that I can do. And I know that at the end of the day, I'm not the one who's doing the hard work, but man, I just feel so grateful every day to go home and say, or at least feel like I've made a little bit of a difference in my community.
See, I love that as well, because there's a lot of folks out there who just be like, I'm here, just I got to do what I got to do, right? I got to make that money, I got to pay the bills or whichever, and that's fine. There's nothing against
Absolutely
that,
not.
right? However, when you have more of a mission like that, like just like you said, if there's some way that you can find to save some money somewhere, or working on the budget or whatever, to be able to provide raises, that relieves some form of stress in a profession that is all stress.
It is.
That can be all
It
stress.
is.
And that, like you were saying, that's got to be rewarding for you as well, to be like, I was able to do this, and it's going to help them. Ultimately, all around, it's going to be able to help them
Absolutely. And like I could have gone into the private sector in my career. I could have done, whatever I wanted in life. But just, again, there was just something about my life up to this point growing up. And again, my dad being in the city during 9/11,
Yeah.
he lost so many coworkers. And seeing that response, I think that, and I was so young when that happened, but I think that just had such a lasting impact that our first responders, 911, law enforcement, fire, they are out there every day doing really hard work that like, I know you've worked it, but I can't even fathom kind of the things that they go through, the stress, the emotions, the roller coaster of emotions. And the least I can do is be a public servant and serve them, because they're serving the people that really need help.
Before you came here, though, to Cobb County, where were you at before?
So before Cobb County, I was working with Tennessee District 2 Homeland Security. So it was based out of Knoxville, Tennessee.
It sounds hardcore right away, just the way you're saying it.
It was, you know what? It was a cool job. I had an awesome boss. It was one of the coolest jobs ever. So I managed grants, Homeland Security grants, hazmat grants specifically. And what I would do is two different things. I was purchasing really cool equipment, radio, hazmat gear, whatnot, for different agencies in Knox County with that Homeland Security grant money. And then the second portion of that was actually bringing people like you in to train people. And it was more looking at it from like a multi-district standpoint. So, you have an incident that happens in, let's say, Jefferson County, Tennessee, small county, but it's a huge, large-scale incident of some sort. You're going to have responders from all over East Tennessee and even the state and even the country going to support them. Our goal was to train people to work together. Whether you lived in Knox County or Jefferson or Monroe, you were starting to get to know the people that you were going to be working with during those large-scale incidents. We brought in some really cool training, swiftwater trainings, interview and interrogation, hazmat training, just a whole bunch of really great stuff. So that was a really cool job. I enjoyed that a lot. I
can just imagine you as well as you're trying to vet out all of these different companies, all these different trainings, and kind of reading through a lot of that stuff. It's got to be eye-opening as well.
Oh yeah, it kind of scares you a little bit at first because you don't even realize, like, man, they need to do a training on how to transport, hazmat equipment from one, or hazmat, chemicals from one place to another. But then you think about it, you're like, yeah, you kind of do need to learn about how that all functions. So
right, otherwise you end up, causing a zombie apocalypse or something.
Exactly.
That's an extreme thing. I'm joking for those who are listening.
I remember we brought in. So Homeland Security has a bunch of kind of like subsectors, like TEACs, all these different training centers, NCBRT, and we actually brought a training in once, and it was about chemicals, kind of how chemicals are carried on trains specifically. And I remember thinking, like, this is a random class. I'm going to listen to it. It'll be cool. I got to listen. Actually, it was a 911 call that we listened to. It was horrible. This happened, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, the incident was in South Carolina, and a chlorine was being brought across the tracks, and there was a really bad accident. The train and the chlorine engulfed this area, and it was right near this big warehouse facility, and that was one of the most horrible 911 calls I've heard because. Gentleman passed. 9 people died because of chlorine poisoning. They couldn't breathe, and you had to hear the 911 call where the gentleman was saying, please, let my family, I love them, and unfortunately he did pass away. And that was actually one of the first times I really thought about too the impact that our 911 dispatchers have on a response, and you don't think about it, but. That training was teaching everyone in that room, law enforcement, fire, 911 personnel, how to respond to a situation like that. Because in Knoxville, there's train tracks everywhere. How do you respond if a chlorine truck does kind of go off the rails?
Right.
So,
as you're in there in that class and you're listening to all of this, I guess the 911 call specifically, I guess a little deeper, how are you feeling when you're listening to this? Because then also, how long was it before you ended up switching from there over here to Cobb?
So that was, I want to say that class I took in November of 2021. So that was a little bit before coming here to Cobb County, because I started here in May of 2022. The impact that had on me, I'll be honest, I got teary-eyed there in the back. That training wasn't for me, the person who manages the money and manages the grant, that I'm not necessarily going to be a part of that response directly, but hearing the care in that person's voice, listening to this gentleman during a really hard time, it brought tears to my eyes, and I know that those are things that the people in that room see they deal with those kinds of things every other day, just tragedy after tragedy. But listening to it and seeing the response and seeing how people were reacting to it also shows kind of the resilience that these people have. And it made me feel kind of bad that I'm sitting here kind of teary-eyed in the back, but it really just kind of put in perspective, again, like I said, the things that they have to deal with every single day. So,
do you feel like maybe that training, what you experienced, the impact on you, as you said, the emotions, a roller coaster of emotions really is what all of this can be categorized as well. Do you feel like that maybe kind of planted the seed of eventually coming here?
And I think it did. I think it really did show me that. And secondly, where I worked, the physical location of where I worked too. So we rented an office from the Emergency Management Agency in Knoxville, who rented offices from the 911 center. I worked in the Knox County 911 center. That was where my office was located.
Oh, no way.
So actually every day when I came into work, I was coming into, now I wasn't working directly for the 911 center there, but I was in that same building with those people during those incidents, and I think it's kind of funny. Now that you bring it up, it kind of is foreshadowing, because did I ever think in my life that I would be working directly for a 911 center? Not necessarily. I knew I wanted to be in public safety. I knew I wanted to support that mission and that goal. But now that you kind of bring it up, I guess that was kind of a foreshadowing of where I am now. And where I am now is a place where I'm so happy. I've got a great boss. Yeah. I have amazing coworkers. I get to work with some of the people you've gotten to talk with and meet. I work with some of the greatest people ever. So, yeah, I didn't really think about that, but it is kind of a foreshadowing there. Interesting.
And see, I like to bring stuff up like that because on the dispatch side, I'm a firm believer that there are some phone calls that are meant for us, depending on what type of experience that we have throughout our lives or whichever. Just so, for example, I remember one of the calls that I mentioned yesterday in class, and one that I'll share with you here, is one time when I was in dispatch, I was dealing with some very excruciating pain, like back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain that was enough that it was like going up into my temple and my eyeball, and it was just horrible. Yes, it was just really, really bad. And I had tried everything. I'd gone to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "You're good to go. I don't know what to tell you." And I'm like,
thanks.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, all right, checks in the mail. Thanks a lot for that. So I'm kind of left trying to figure out what to do for myself. And I finally did something that I never thought I would ever do, mostly because out of fear that someone was either going to make fun of me for what I was going to do, or just anything like that, or if I could even accomplish what I wanted to do or what I was going to try to do. And what it was yoga. Believe it or not, it was yoga. And one 45-minute session, it ended up taking all that pain away.
Wow.
A while later, I'm in dispatch, and I take a phone call, and it's a lady who is suicidal, and she's telling me about this excruciating back pain and neck pain, and I'm sitting there while I'm listening to her, and I thought, like, is this really happening right now? Because this is something that I've dealt with. And one of my coworkers, who's also a trainer, I would watch him. I would observe him sometimes when he was talking to suicidal subjects. And one of the things that I learned early on when I very first started working in dispatch, my main trainer told me there's 3 things that you need to be able to do this job. 1, you have to have common sense. 2, you have to have thick skin. And 3, you have to be human. And my coworker, he really was like all of us, we would play that, do the human part, right? But I would observe him, and he would ask, like, what kind of movies do you like? What kind of music do you like? Just to keep their mind off of what they originally called for.
Sure, yeah.
So I was doing the same thing with this caller. And then she goes something to the effect of, have you ever dealt with anything like this before? And I thought, here's my chance.
Yeah.
So I told her what I did. And we were talking about it. And EMS gets out there, and she told me thank you. And she said that she didn't want to do it anymore because now there was another path. There was another way. There was hope, yes. And I always say this when I tell the story and when I share it with others, so I'll tell you as well. For all I know, this person is a yoga instructor somewhere. I have no idea.
That'd be great.
You never know, right? Yeah, I hope, she ended up being able to find some sort of
Yeah.
relief or something. But every time I practice yoga, I think of that person.
I'm
Like
sure.
there's that connection. And in the same sense, like we're talking about like your foreshadowing and everything,
Mhm.
what I tell everybody is sometimes it's good to reflect
Yeah.
on our lives, on our experiences, to see how we got to where we're at.
Mm.
And maybe there was something that happened in our past that we did not even think of, where you end up having a full circle moment and you think, I kind of feel like that wasn't like for you, like it kind of it planted that seed,
did.
a little bit
Mhm.
to end up moving into public safety.
Yeah, definitely. See, and that's such an amazing story because it's horrible.
Right.
The number of people that deal with anxiety and depression and those thoughts, here in the country, and it's horrible. But that is just one example of millions of examples of telecommunicators and dispatchers making such a big impact on somebody's life. And that's one out of who knows
Yeah, who knows
how many, but
Yeah.
that had such a profound impact on that person, and it had such a profound, it sounds like, positive impact on you too, which is really important. It's amazing how life kind of works that way.
Right?
Yeah,
It is very interesting.
and you're right, though. Yoga is very good for you, mind, body, and soul. I did it all through college, and man, it is a great thing to do. It's crazy you got rid of your back
Yeah.
pain too.
Oh
It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I continue to do it. There's
for you.
sometimes that I'm a little lax on it, and I feel it. I'm like, all right, it's time to get back.
It happens. It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah, it happens
life.
to everybody.
It's life,
Yes,
So
yeah, exactly.
That's an amazing story. But
It's one of the things that I talk about with the folks yesterday, and I'll talk to them tomorrow about it as well, because I always tell people, listen to your body, because otherwise, eventually, your body's going to make you listen.
Yes.
And then you might be screwed.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Or in a way where you're just like clawing back up to
Yeah.
get healthy or just feel better in general.
No, it's crazy how how you physically feel can have such an impact on your mental well-being too.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
So.
And like we were saying already, this profession has enough stress as it is. So you end up going through, you're in that class. We already have said, there's some foreshadowing there and stuff.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
And you end up coming here.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to actually kind of like sit in the center at all?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I when I first came in, so a lot of my experience prior to this has been in grants, and even my position previous to this, I was working over at Superior Court, and something I learned being in that position, which was a brand new position to the department, just as this was a brand new position to this department. It didn't exist before. You have to do a lot of research. So even when I came here, and you can ask anyone here, the amount of questions that I asked people, I was going around to everybody asking about how things work, because I don't know how this works. What I know coming into this position is these are the people answering the calls on people's worst days. That's what I know. I don't know any of the technology that goes into it. I don't know the protocols, how that all works. And so I did quite a bit of talking and asking questions and understanding and kind of seeing what they're doing and kind of sitting up there and seeing how they do. Now, I will say, I haven't gotten the chance to sit there. I would love to sit with them for like 4 or 6 hours and just see how it all functions. But I will say, we had our CAD went down temporarily. This was January. In January, it went down temporarily. But they're so prepared. Again, emergency management, NIMS, all that good stuff kind of goes right into effect.
Right.
And they've got a backup plan. And so they said it was like 2:30 in the afternoon, all hands on deck. We need people to go up to the floor to help. And so here I am, I'm wearing my heels. I was wearing my heels that day too. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go up there. What can I do to help? And I was helping with mapping, doing the cross streets mapping, and then also bringing the cards to the different areas. So, the call taker takes the call and I go and I bring it over to whichever area it needs to go to, and did that for about hour and a half, man, I learned so much. And I have such a new respect also for technology.
Right, yes.
Because they're telling me, there are people who have been here for 30 years and they're like, oh, we used to put this on a conveyor belt, and then the conveyor belt would bring it around, and once it got to the right place, they'd take it off and they'd go ahead and process it. And I'm like, man, technology is amazing on how far we've gotten. So yeah, I've gotten a chance to kind of hang out with them some, and again, what they do is.
Are you sure you don't want to be a dispatcher or a call taker?
I couldn't do it. I could not do it, and I'll tell you why. It's because I would get too emotionally invested.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I could take it really is just trauma after trauma after trauma. When I was with Homeland Security, I went to a lot of trainings and had to see a lot of videos that were disturbing. I had to read after actions from Sandy Hook, from the shooting out in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Those were things I had to read because we were trying to figure out where's the problem area, what do we need to train for, what kind of equipment do we need to prepare for the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that was taxing for me mentally, seeing those and reading those after actions about those poor children at Sandy Hook, and it was emotional for me. And I loved that job, and I'll tell you that was one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life, and some of the coolest experiences. I had a great boss. All positives. I could not pick up the phone, and somebody is on the other line saying that they want to kill themselves, or that they've just found their loved one has had a heart attack, or they've been in a major. I cannot do that. There's just no way.
Well, I asked only because just observing your body language, your excitement, and kind of like an adrenaline rush almost of doing that stuff, I thought, it looks like you're like really into it like that. That's awesome. Yeah. But also, I'm happy that you definitely know yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know right off the bat, because there's a lot of times, you've got people who are coming in. Let's just say, for example, when I was in dispatch, we had 10 people who came in. We were short-staffed, like a lot of places are. 10 people come in, only 2 made it.
Wow. Yeah.
But there were some folks who were just like, I've got this, I'm going to do this, wanting to blow through training and everything else. And like we could tell, but this person didn't fully, I guess, really know themselves, to that point. So I love really how honest you are. Like,
No, I know.
You definitely know.
Hey, well, like I said, like hearing that call that I was talking about, and here I am, like sniffling in the back, like trying to pull out tissues or something. And, and the other people in the room who have been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years, they're affected by it. You can see it on their face, but they're composed, they're calm, they're keeping it together, they're thinking about it, and they can analyze it, because then you talk about it afterwards, of course, just like any training, you hear the call, let's talk about what happened here.
Right.
And they're so composed and, kind of hiding their feelings about it. And I'm there in the back sniffling. And it's like, I think that's a token to the fact that I know I can't. I know I can't do that. And I know that that's a hard job. And I know myself well enough to say, you know what? That's not my strength. But what is my strength is looking at the numbers, negotiating the agreements, talking about our strategic plan, making relationships with other people in the county so that, hey, if I need a contract signed really quickly, I know Stephanie's going to help me out because her and I have a really good relationship, and she's going to help me out. That's where my strength is. It's not there. So, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, that is okay. But I also love the fact that you, like you said, I'm in heels now, and I was in heels then, and I went straight out there.
And I will be 10 years from now.
But you went, like you answered that call.
Yeah.
You answered the call for help. In a different way, but you answered that call for help, and you went out there and you were assisting, you were taking CAD calls back and forth, you were doing the GIS, the cross streets, all that good stuff. So you got a little taste of it.
I know, and it was, and it was fun. It was fun. But again, I wasn't the one picking up the phone call.
True.
I wasn't the one
But
picking
you
up
were
the phone
still,
call.
in a way, you were assisting
I was.
those who were assisting as well. So
and it made me feel good at the end of the day, and that's I think that's the thing that, you know, our first responders and our telecommunicators, they do this because they know that there is that need, that people need help, and they're going to answer the call. They're going to answer the call physically that they're picking up, but they're also answering that calling of, what can I do to make my community better, and how can I serve the public in a way that is positive? So It's great.
This has been awesome talking to you. We're already up on the time. That's crazy.
No, it's been wonderful talking to you.
It doesn't even feel like it's been that long. So for going into the wrap up of this episode, for those who are listening, I guess a couple of questions here. First, for anyone who is thinking about, going into public safety, kind of the pathway that you did, not exactly the same, but you know, in a sense, whether they're being, business management analyst or however on that side to be able to help as well. Like, what is some advice you would give someone who's thinking about coming into public safety, but kind of like on the business side as well?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, and I went through, my undergrad, my master's. I'm getting my second master's right now at Georgia Tech. Recognize what you're good at, I guess, first off. What am I good at? I know I'm good at numbers, and I know I'm good at writing. So really look at what you're good at. Number two, you're not going into this for money, okay? Like I said, could I go and work at Home Depot, IBM? Absolutely, I could do that and use my skills. But the person who takes on a position like this has to have a passion for serving the public. Like I have said multiple times, like, not everybody can do the job that they're doing on that floor or that they're doing on the road, but it is so important that you have somebody who's passionate about public safety supporting the people who are in public safety. So just acknowledging that. And I know my pathway, again, it was really just a calling to me from higher power, whatever you want to call it. But you need someone to do it, and you need somebody to do it well, because unfortunately, if those things fall through the cracks, everything else kind of starts to fall on the administrative end of things. And the administrative end has to be right, because if it's not right, then that's going to impact the operations at the end of the day. And what's number one is the operation and making sure that we're keeping our citizens safe. So I just recommend, go for it. You can't think about the money. You got to think about, how do you be a public servant? And if that's your calling, to be a public servant, and you say, man, I want to be a public servant, but I can't do that job. Hey, there's jobs like mine too that are out there all across the country. And I'm sure that there's short-staffed too on that side of things. So I just say go for it, and you follow your passion at the end of the day.
Awesome. My final question for you. What's the impact been from the 911 professionals and what they do on you?
It's a lot. I mean, it's amazing what they do. And it's crazy. We just had 2 individuals go help out up in Cobb County, North Carolina, with the Hurricane Helene, all the devastation up there. Eventually we'll be reimbursed by FEMA. 2 years from now, who knows? But I was just talking with one of the ladies that went up there, Becky. And, I said to her, because I haven't seen her since she got back, I said, how are you? How was it? She goes, man, it was a lot. It was heavy stuff. And, I said to her, hey, well, just so you know, I really, really appreciated you. You mean a lot to me. I told all my friends and family about what you were doing, and we're just so proud of you. And she just kind of said, because we were with a lot of people, she came up to me afterwards and she just went, thank you for saying something, because that really that means a lot to me, that you acknowledge that I went and I did that. And I go, Becky, I'm always here for you. You do the hard, like I've said today, you do the hard work. I'm just here to support you. And so I really do. I try to show my appreciation in those little ways, because I wish I could give them more money. I wish I could give them, really cool wellness room, state of the art, 911. I want to give them all those things. It takes time. We're going to get there. We're going to get them the things that they need and they deserve. But right now, words, it's amazing the power of words. All Also, I make cookies for them sometimes.
Oh, hey, well, that's good
another
too.
way I try to
Yeah.
try to show my appreciation. So, I mean, man, I'm just so grateful to work with these people. It's really, I feel good going home at the end of the day, laying down and saying, you know what, not making a direct difference, but shoot, I'm helping the people that are. That's what matters.
Perfect. Thank you
Yes,
so very
of
much.
course.
This was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was.
Thank you for being on. And for those who are listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. The easiest way to do all of this is to simply go to links, that's links with 2 i's.co/WTT podcast. You'll find my email there, social media, where to hear the latest episode, where to purchase Imagine Listening Volume 2, as well as Volume 1 that's going to be coming out December 2024. And you can see this on Facebook, YouTube, X, as well as LinkedIn Live. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one.